All right, we have Mike. No pronouns given in South Carolina.
Okay.
If atheism is true, then life is absurd. Wouldn't atheists try to find meaning of life?
Okay. How's it going, Mike?
I'm hitting the talk. Oh, there we go. How you doing, Mike?
Hey, good. How are you, gentlemen?
Good.
Doing well, thanks. Why don't you explain to us what your thinking is on this?
Well, I actually had a funeral this weekend, and it was a good time to think about things. Hey, can you hear me, gentlemen? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can. It sounds like you're maybe on speakerphone. If you are, please come off a speakerphone. It'll make it easier for our listeners to hear you.
All right, I'm not. Is that better, though? I put in my...
It is a little bit.
That is a little bit better, yes.
Thank you.
All right, I'll talk to the carpet, better acoustics. But anyway, you know, you go to a funeral, you guys all been to one, and not fun. And I don't know. It just, there's, you know, I believe in God. You don't. It really hits you when you're standing there and it's over, and you're like, wow, I guess YOLO doesn't really work. I mean, my proposal is, if life is absurd as an atheist, I think it is, but we can talk about it, then it would be worthy of your time to keep digging and try and find whatever the heck the meaning of life is. I'm not saying, well, I am saying, I think I might know the way, but it's worth your while, because you've got whatever life you have left to find what the meaning
I
of life
have
is.
meaning in my life.
I found meaning.
I have found meaning in my life. I don't have to go looking for it. I already have it.
Yeah, I think that's sort of a question I want to ask is, you can phrase that statement in a couple of different ways. You can say, what is the meaning of life? Or you can say, what is a meaning in life? Or what should you do with your life? Or what do you want to do with your life? There's lots of different ways to sort of phrase that. I think by saying the meaning of life, and I'm not saying that's your position, but saying the meaning of life implies either a set of physics that dictates it, or a God that is saying, do this or else, right? That sort of is the meaning of life. But a meaning of life sort of carries with it the meaning that there can be lots, and you get to sort of pick and choose. Where do you come in? Where do you think a life without belief in God would lead you, as far as, do you think there is only one meaning of life, or do you need there to be one? Or do you think, would you be happy to say there can be lots of meanings, and as an atheist, I get to sort of build the life I like and choose one or more meanings that are personally satisfying to me? Where do you think you would be in that space?
Well, I would approach it mathematically, where if your life is finite, and then when it's over, and as time rolls out, you know, as far as the heat death of the universe, et cetera, your life becomes smaller and smaller and smaller compared to time rolling out, which it approaches zero, which mathematically makes you meaningless. You can say, you can prove it mathematically.
Let's define. Hold on. We're running past a point.
No, I think I just identified a problem here.
Right.
Are you looking for a meaning in life, or are you looking for meaning in the afterlife?
All the above.
Okay, so let's take a step backwards. And could you define meaning?
I think there is no meaning unless it goes on forever.
No, my question was,
after 80 years,
my question, hold on. I'm not trying to not let you talk, but I do want to, I think this is the key point of conversation. When you say meaning in life, what do you mean by the word meaning? What does that mean?
I mean, why are we here?
That's not a definition.
I don't mean have fun with your life. I mean, yeah, but that's the meaning of life. Is like, why are we here? Science has a tough time with that one.
That's what cross-examiner is asking you. Why do you think we are here?
Well, not necessarily. I mean, let's go back to what I just quoted, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right?
Okay.
They build a giant computer and ask it the question, what is the meaning of life? And it thinks for billions of years and says the answer to this question is 42. And then they realize, I need to build another even bigger computer to say, what is the question of life? So I'm still stuck on understanding what you, Mike, mean by meaning, do you mean purpose? Do you mean rules dictated you from an external source? Do you mean something that gives you satisfaction? What do you mean by the meaning of life?
Yeah, I mean, that's a heady question. It's not 42. You can agree with that, right?
Right. It's at least 43.
I mean, and I loved watching that, by the way. I was like, that's hilarious.
Read the books then. You'll love it even more.
Yeah, the books are amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, we make jokes about it at the office and all that. 42 when you don't know the answer. But
so what do you mean by the meaning of life? You said, I think you answered that by asking a question like, what's it all for? What's the purpose? But do you mean that the meaning of life is the thing that gives you purpose? And does that, if so, does that mean that that thing needs to be told to you externally, or can you come up with that on your own?
I think externally I came across it. I don't think I thought of this. I definitely didn't think of it first, but the only thing I can think of is that we're meant to live forever and have relationships with other people and God. That's it.
Okay, so that's what you think is. Is that what you think currently? You are convinced that that is the meaning of life, is to live forever and be happy. I'm not trying to trap. I'm just trying to understand what your position is.
I think we were created to have relationships with each other and with God, and the only way that's meaningful, if that lasted only 80 years, that wouldn't be meaningful either. It's got to last forever for anything.
And what do you? We're back then again to what do you mean by meaningful? When you say it wouldn't be meaningful, what do you mean by that? I think we're stuck on that. I think what you're saying is, what I hear you saying is, I wouldn't like it, but that's not the same thing as being meaningful.
Yeah. Some things make you happy, and temporary. I mean, things that just satisfy, like a good friend.
Okay.
Very satisfying.
Do I need now? And I have to be able to experience that infinitely to have meaning in my life. I don't understand the like live forever thing. Is that inherent to having meaning?
And I thought about it. If it doesn't last forever, whatever it is, it's pretty much meaningless because then it's over. And it gives it more meaning. It gives it even more meaning because we're only here for a small, finite time.
I want to jump back and say we just sort of contradicted the definition of meaning here. Okay, so I think we need to refine what you say by meaning, because you keep coming back to meaning and saying it's meaningless if it doesn't last forever. Previously, I asked, when you say meaning, do you mean that it's something that makes you happy, something you like? And I think you latched on to that, if I read the conversation correctly. So is that correct? That something is meaningful if it is something that gives you joy?
There's a difference between happy at that short term. It's got to be a deep, satisfying joy. And the only thing that does that, it's not alcohol, drugs, or any money. It's relationships with people and God.
Okay.
That's it.
So what you are saying is,
I'd like to hear your thoughts.
So that what you've got two levels then. You have deep, meaningful relationships, which you decide or you identify as something that you believe is the meaning of life. And then there's a separate question of what if those relationships end? And like you said, mathematically, that means I'll have been a tiny bit of carbon that was here for an instant and gone. Does that mean that your life had no meaning? Or does that mean that the point of the universe is there is no point? There's a lot of like sort of despair that I'm hearing from your call about mortality. So I think that using the language of meaning in this particular sense can be confusing, which is why I'm taking a little bit extra time. But I agree with Kelley that I don't think that saying because I won't live forever, my life has no meaning. I agree. It means it's the one and only life I have. So it's the most important thing ever. It is the most meaningful thing I have. I get to choose how I live my life, and I don't want to waste it doing a bunch of stuff that I don't enjoy. So while I am here, it means a lot to me, and it means a lot, it appears to mean a lot to the people that I am friends and family with. what I hear you saying is that's not enough, that you get depressed, sad, and forlorn when you contemplate dying and not being able to use the old analogy. You really, really, really like being at the party. And at some point you realize you're going to have to leave the party. And that makes you very sad. Is that where you're at?
Not even close. I don't like parties that much. I just like hanging with a few friends. I'm not forlorn or sad. I'm not going to get scared into being a Christian. You can't dangle me over the pit of hell. I shake my fist at God. None of that. I'm not afraid of dying. It's just
I didn't use the word afraid. I meant to say the analogy about parties was just to say you're really enjoying life right now, and you get depressed or sad, or you don't like the idea of it coming to an end. That's I think what I'm hearing from you.
To quote Mark Twain, I'm not afraid of dying either, but I don't want to be there when it happens.
That's a good one.
I like that. I like that. But no, I'm just saying philosophically, mathematically, you can prove your life is meaningless. 100 years from now, no one's going to know you. They might have a video or a picture. I think care.
I understand your argument about the mathematical part, that, hey, anything that exists, if you start putting it into infinity, is practically zero, but it's not zero. It approaches zero as you approach infinity, but it's not zero. So any meaning that it exists still is there. The fact that it's a tiny, 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 tiny portion of all existence doesn't change that it was there and that it gave meaning to you and to other people. So I don't necessarily agree with your math there. Because we know that there's always going to be some numerator there over a very, 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 very large number. But I know it's late. I'll just sum up by saying I personally find meaning in the same things that you do. I find a great deal of satisfaction with relationships and friends and family, and watching my children grow up and doing things I loved, having conversations like this with interesting people like you. This really makes me happy. And I'm convinced, whether I'm right or wrong, I'm convinced that this is the one life I have, and this is what I'm choosing to do with it. And it gives me a lot of meaning. And I think that once I am dead, it will be like before I was born. I won't care.
Mm-hmm. And I have to say the same thing for me. I have meaning in my life. I have 2 children that I love and will do anything for, and they bring me a lot of meaning. I own my own business with my son. We own it together. I have meaning in my life. I like to do political activism, environmental activism, religious activism. I do things to make my life meaningful. And I think that's something that everybody has to do. And in my eyes, my life is that tiny, finite little spot in all of eternity. So I have to make the best of it that I can. I only have this little short time, this little tiny short time to use, and I want to do the best things that I can for myself and the people around me that I love, and for everybody, and in fact for the world. Because it all starts next to you, but it fans out. It's like the butterfly effect. I often like to say each small candle lights a dark corner of the world.
Nice.
And that helps me get meaning. So
I hope this helped you understand our take on it, Mike.
Yeah, that's all wishful thinking. I mean, think about it. But everything you said is like 1,000 years from now.
It's not wishful thinking. It's what I'm doing. I'm not wishing. I'm not wishing. Yeah, Mike, I'm not wishing this. I'm doing this.
Yeah, and I think I would caution you to be a little careful about that, because asserting that that's wishful thinking is underneath asserting that we're lying to you about how we feel and what we get reward from. I honestly believe what you're telling me. I would ask that you don't assert that I don't get meaning out of my own life and that I don't feel content with what I'm doing and that it doesn't give me satisfaction. So maybe that's not what you meant by saying it's wishful thinking, but that is literally what I think about the topic.
Yeah, well, we're all running around trying to get meaning, and that's good. And then it's over, and
yep.
And then it's over.
It's worth your while.
And that's why we're trying to get the most meaning now.
Yeah, as a famous movie character once said, you can get busy living or you can get busy dying, and I'm going to get busy living.
Well, that's I'm saying look harder on how you got here, why you're here, we didn't cover any of those questions. We have no time, but you know, don't give up on God. And there's a million ways that God's abused by all these stupid religions. There is a right way. Just keep looking. That's all I'm saying.
I will point out one more time that you telling me to look harder is sort of assuming you know how hard I've looked. And I would appreciate it if you didn't do that.
I've been looking for 45 years and I haven't found it yet. So,
yeah.
Well, but you're correct. I mean, a lot of people say if there's a God, I'm not going to follow him if I got to follow his rules. And that's a fair statement. You can do that. That's free will. A lot of people do that.
That's not what I said, though.
Yeah, that's not our position. My position was you just said you need or look harder, which implies you know how hard I've looked. And I'm asking you not to do that. Basically, don't put words in my mouth. No, I didn't mean to do that. I meant either you already know what God's about and you're like, no thanks, and a lot of people do that, or maybe you've seen so many just poor representations, people lying and hypocrites.
No, it's neither one of those. It's neither one of those, Mike. I have never seen any convincing evidence that any God, not just the one you believe in, but any God is true and real. That's why I don't believe in a God. It has nothing to do with I've heard it and just don't accept it. I have never, ever seen any unambiguous empirical evidence that any God has ever existed or that anything supernatural has ever happened.
Yeah, and same here. That would be my position. And maybe, Mike, if you could call back another time, we could get into that, because really the core question seems to be that you are assuming, maybe rightfully so, maybe not, that if we were exposed to the right experiences and or information, we would become convinced of a God, and that would somehow mean our lives were meaningful. So we don't have time to obviously dive into that today, but that seems to be what your assertion is now, to say that, well, if you don't believe in God, then obviously you haven't been exposed to the right information, data, or experiences. So I really appreciate you calling. It's a really healthy conversation, and I really appreciate how you approached it.
Yeah. And you know what? I want to suggest that I filled in for J Mike today, and I think you would have a really, really good conversation with J Mike.
No doubt.
Be an easy name for you to remember, Mike. So maybe next time that he's hosting, you give him a call back and talk to him about this. I think he would really love to get into this conversation with you. I really do. I'm laughing because I can hear him screaming at the screen right now if he's watching. Like, you need to say this. Or... yeah, fuck you, Kelley. No, Mike's an awesome guy.
Yeah, thank you for calling in, Mike. I really appreciate it.
Mike, thank you so much.